Florida State loses a 2026 recruit, but it's not as big a deal as you might think.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst and writer. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me on this special edition. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Just going to be talking about one main subject on this bonus episode of Locked On Seminoles. Amari Thomas has decommitted from the Noles, but it's a little broader in terms of what it means than if it was an offensive tackle or defensive tackle, etc. And I'm going to explain that because honestly, there's never a good time for decommitments, but the timing is good based on yesterday's show, which was about the blue chip ratio and why that overall is more important than looking at one position or another. You got to look at the broad spectrum. Where are you as a program? Where are you at that position? Offense, defense, etc. We're going to get into that. But first, there is one part of this that I really dislike for Florida State. Amari Thomas had recently transferred to Blountstown High School, which is less than an hour from Doak Campbell Stadium, or right at it, depending on how fast or slow you drive. That's a program that's got some dudes. Texas A&M, Miami, several different programs have recruited kids out of there in the last few years. Losing a kid and presumably to South Carolina, because that was the other team left on his board, Amari Thomas, it's inevitable. He's going to commit to South Carolina. I don't know what the date is, but that's going to happen. Losing kids that are within an hour radius of your campus, I've talked about this many times, is a big red flag. Unfortunately, in today's era, you're going to have some of those no matter what you do. The more I learn about NIL, kids wanting certain opportunities, and more kids going away from home. I had a post about this I put up on X at FB Scout_Florida here recently. Most of the kids in the state of Florida leave now. Literally, like it's been for years. The big three, Miami, Florida State, out of the top 50 kids in the state of Florida by 24/7 Sports, only 15 of the top 50 have committed to one of those three programs as of a few days ago. It could have changed one or two. And out of those 50, 45 had made announcements. So only 15 of the 45 announcements, so 1/3 stayed with one of the big three. So there's a little bit of that too, but you really hate losing kids right down the road because once those young men get into your program, as a rule, they're pretty darn loyal. They're good with culture. More of them are likely to end up being captains, etc. That aside, here's what you really need to know about it from a depth chart and overall program perspective, though. It's a running back. And I'm not trying to denounce the level of talent or anything else, but running back value is not even in the same stratosphere as the position we talk about most often here on Locked On Seminoles, and that is offensive tackle, defensive end, and corner, the other spots constantly brought up, and quarterback's just obvious because every podcaster has to talk about quarterback whether they want to or not. Florida State lost a running back. We're going to talk about the depth chart now because it's just not that hard for FSU to get running backs. Think back over if you're old as I am, I'm 51. Name a time when Florida State didn't have somebody in their 3 deep. It may not have been their time yet. Name some time when you didn't think one of their three guys was at least going to have a cup of coffee in the National Football League. They always have running backs that have the ability to at least make a roster for a year or two. Not worried about that spot. And to that point, let me give you an example, especially the transfer portal era. I'm not nearly as worried about it because it's corner to some degree, depending on the offense, wide receiver, and especially running back are the three spots where young men can walk in and play the earliest as freshmen, junior college players, or transfers. Doesn't matter which. It's more about God-given ability. Right now, you got Rodell Williams. You've got Cam Davis. You've got Gavin Sawchuk, who just transferred in from Oklahoma. You got Sam Singleton. You got Jalen Lucas. It's just an insane amount of talent which one ends up being healthy, which one ends up moving up the ladder situationally, all that. Florida State has so many options. It's crazy. Now let's look at the list. Are these in traditionally normal places for FSU to recruit? If they'd have recruited all these kids out of high school, they recruited Rodell. I'm sure everybody did. It's a kid from just outside of Birmingham, but he's Alabama. Florida State always recruits there. Cam Davis is from Georgia. Obviously, they got him in a big recruitment. Sawchuk, he's the one that's kind of out of the realm, but he's a transfer. He's from Colorado. Singleton's from the greater Jacksonville area. Jalen Lucas, kid from Louisiana. They've always recruited there. These are normal kids for Florida State to recruit. It's not going to be that hard. Again, it's more about the political nature of losing Amari Thomas. Really good football player. I like him a lot, and it's unfortunate for Florida State, but you can survive it. Now, this does mean Florida State does not have a recruit in this class for the 26 group. It's a good class, but they don't have a running back. You still want to get at least one. And back to the point about the level of importance for position, the following is unfortunate again, but it's just true. Running backs get hurt as much, if not more, than any other position on the football field. It is a barbaric sport, and that is the most barbaric position, in my opinion. Your ability to have contact at full speed is needed more at that spot than any other on the gridiron. It's really not that close because different players tackle the running back, but the running back's constantly the one getting tackled. You're going to have guys go down, and that's why you see at the college and NFL levels, the vast majority of teams use two guys and rotate them. Ironically, last year, Gus at UCF, RJ Harvey had 22 rushing touchdowns and like 1,500 and some yards rushing. I'll get into those stats in a second, but he was the exception in college football. He's one of the best running backs in the country. Great player. If you have one of those guys every 5 years, it would be ahead of the curve. He's going to play in the NFL. Good guy. I wish him the best, but Florida State will be okay at running back. Now, as for the recruiting situation, what's next for Florida State? We're going to get into that coming up here in just a moment, but I want you to think about one thing first. Do you really think Florida State's going to struggle to run the ball with Malzahn's history? Like, I'm going to go over the numbers here in a second. He could do it at UCF. You could easily do it at Florida State. And do you think that's going to help them recruit more running backs, not only this year, but in the future? The answer to that is yes. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Seminoles. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you can also begin building wealth. No matter what it is you're saving for, like a college fund for your kids or for your grandchildren, even saving an extra $20 here or there matters. It always matters. The more, the merrier. So with Monarch Money, it's a little more convenient, a little more easy to get it done because in one app, you can have all your finances tracked, making it better for you to find out where you're spending and where you could cut back and save some more cash. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. And I would appreciate it also if you would share this podcast, comment, give me your thoughts about Amari Thomas, Florida State recruiting, whatever you want. Or if you just want me to discuss maybe a certain topic, ask a question about what do I think about something, more than happy to do so and actually discuss it here on Locked On Seminoles. As for Gus and this offense, I'm not at all worried based on the depth chart that I just went over, based on Gus's history. In about 10 seconds, we're going to go over the stats, but it's not that hard to recruit running backs to Florida State. Think about the history just in general. Guys like Travis Minor, Warwick Dunn, and just a plethora of other guys going back to the 80s, 90s. It's been crazy. And then in the last 20 years, it's been even better. There are just too many guys to even worry about. They're going to be fine there. And here's another reason to feel good about it. For those of you who don't know that much about Gus's offense, here's the backbone. They are going to run different variations of inside power. It will be successful. He's done it his whole career. At Auburn, at Arkansas, at UCF, he has been successful. He was successful with Tulsa. He's successful wherever he's at with one version or another of power football. Sometimes he uses the quarterback some. He's got a bigger guy. Sometimes they'll run a little bit more outside if they've got a really twitchy guy. Forget his name, but the quarterback that was at Auburn in 2013 ended up playing corner in the NFL. He was a freak. So they let him go outside the pocket more. He will adjust to his personnel. Florida State's 2025 depth chart, guy like Rodell, I don't know if they'll use him anywhere near as much as R.J. Harvey was used last year at UCF. The Knights rode him quite hard. He had 22 touchdowns. That's a lot. But you got Rodell and Cam, big guys that are good for inside zone, gap, stuff like that. You also have Jalen Lucas for all the gadget plays, draws, screens, speed option, read option, a million different things. And then you have Thomas Castellanos, who's essentially a running back. Like he was literally recruited by some schools, might even been Florida State, to play running back out of high school at Ware County in Georgia. All of that combined, and he had Sam Singleton in, Keziah Holmes, all these different guys. Florida State will find the right fit. I don't think R.J. Harvey numbers is going to happen for Odell or anybody else. Maybe Salchuk has a good year. They kind of split the carries, but they're going to run for 2,000 yards this year, conservatively. My guess is they'll run for quite a bit over that, like 2,200 in 12 games, I think is more likely, and going to 2,500 wouldn't shock me because that's just over 200 yards a game. And here are the last 3 seasons for UCF. I know it's a different school, it's a different league, but it's the same principle in offense, and he's bringing his O-line coach, and he's bringing another coach with him, and Tim Harris. Like there's going to be continuity. Here we go. 2022, the Knights finished 9th in the nation in rushing, 228.4 yards per game. 2023, UCF finishes 5th, 228.2. And then this past year, and this is the most important, even with things unraveling, I'll go in depth a little bit more about this in future shows, but UCF's quarterback room was a carousel of all carousels. They just didn't have a good quarterback. They didn't. They had 4 or 5 different guys take snaps. It was insane. You should be able to load the box and kick the crap out of them. Without any of these 5-star offensive line recruits, tight end recruits, etc., to help block up front, R.J. Harvey's really good, but you still need guys that are elite players. Like they just smash people. They ran for 248 yards a game, 5th in the nation. If you can do that at UCF with the resources, the conference, the Power 4, all that, like just being in any of the Power 4, you're going to get recruits that UCF doesn't. No offense to most of the ACC outside of Clemson in Miami, Louisville to a certain degree, but outside of, for the high school ranks at least, Clemson and Miami, the only other 2 schools that recruit like FSU. Then you play Florida, and every now and then you play Notre Dame or somebody outside the conference, Bama. For the most part, you're going to be able to roll out the ball and be way more talented. You just got to be mentally focused with what you're putting in the backfield. I'm not worried about running back recruiting. And again, full disclosure, losing Amari Thomas sucks, but this is not the same kind of loss to losing an OT would, that losing a DT would, corner, any of those spots, and of course, quarterback. Those are the spots that change games. Florida State has thrown out more NFL running backs than I can count. All the way back to Sammy Smith. Like just, there are tons of them. Find me the linemen. Continue to bring in corners. They got 2 of the best in the country. For the record, On 3 has both of them ranked in the top 40 in the nation, committed to the Noles. They're good there too. Find another pass rusher. That is one other thing they need. They need a running back and a pass rusher more than anything else to finish out the 26 class. Florida State's pretty good. It would be great to get Amari back in the fold. And yes, I've harped on this many times. Some way, somehow, Florida State's got to do a far better job of recruiting the I-10 corridor between Pensacola and Jacksonville. That's something I'm going to talk about more as we get into the year, but more for 27, 28, 29 classes. This one's about 85% of the way done for most schools. If Florida State can just finish out this class, find a pass rusher, find one quality running back, and it could be a JUCO kid. It could be all kinds of things. I don't know. This is a really good Florida State football class. I'm not concerned about it. Next year's class, and I'm going to go into that more, is far more important to me as a recruiting analyst than what we have right now. Because you'll have a year of evidence for all the recruits, for what Gus is going to do, for what Coach White's going to do. How does the D-line work? Are they going to play more 3-man? Are they going to play more 4-man? You can recruit kids to all this stuff. How are you going to use the running backs? You're going to throw to them. You can tell them how often they're going to get the ball as a running back, blah, blah, blah. They want to see it in this era. That's just reality of college football in general, because, as I say all the time, coaches lie constantly in recruiting, and there are more and more people around recruits that like, look, you need to watch this before making judgment. They want to see it at Florida State, though. Gus's offense, I know Gus. I've seen his offense. I've covered. Great guy. He's going to run the football. It is going to be easy to get running back recruits. For him to maximize them, the more important thing, they got to find some more of those offensive linemen. They got to get a pass rusher. We know that. Obviously, they got to get a running back. They got to get one on the board at each spot. And then they need to add at least one more, preferably two, offensive linemen in this class. Those are obtainable goals. It really shouldn't be that hard at Florida State, especially if they execute on the field with good coaching as expected. So with that, thank you very much for checking out this special edition of Locked On Seminoles. Hopefully, I bring a more positive thing the next time I do one of these, but just reporting the news here at Locked On Seminoles. And please, once again, like this podcast, subscribe, become an everydayer. We truly appreciate you stopping in for Locked On Seminoles. We will see you again soon.